Meet Berries, the AI-powered scribe that writes your therapy notes for you. Secure and private with no recordings stored and EMR ready with one click. Join over 8,000 clinicians, saving time and staying present in sessions. And right now, save $50 off your first month with code TherapyShow50. Berries, so you can focus on care, not notes.
Welcome to the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard, where continuing education meets convenience. Lisa brings therapists practical conversations with expert guests who share tools, techniques, and insights to enrich your practice. Whether you're on a walk, commuting, or cooking dinner, you can earn continuing education contact hours and stay inspired without sitting through endless recorded trainings. Visit lisamustard.com to join the CE membership and keep your professional growth as seamless as your favorite podcast.
Please note that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional mental health care, diagnose, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your own licensed mental health provider or medical professional regarding your specific situation. While I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and my guests are also professional counselors, the discussions in this podcast are meant to offer general insights and should not be taken as personalized therapeutic advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship with me or any of my guests. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or have thoughts of harming yourself or others, please contact a mental health professional, call 911, or go to the nearest emergency room immediately. You can also reach out to a crisis hotline such as the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 in the United States for immediate support. Every individual's journey is unique, and what works for one person may not be suitable for another, so please use discretion and seek appropriate care as needed. Welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and I'm so excited for you all to meet Karl Melvin. Welcome to the podcast, Karl. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Okay, we're gonna jump right into the topic. We're gonna talk about family estrangement, and I'm fascinated by this topic right now. And I think a lot of our listeners are seeing this in the therapy rooms as well as seeing it in the media and in the press. So tell us a little bit about your background and your expertise and how you came to be a subject matter expert in this topic.
Yes, you're right. It's a super hot topic ever before. And I think it's in response to certain events that have happened in the last few months, possibly starting with Oprah Winfrey's podcast on family estrangement a few months ago, which was a fascinating program. It was so nice to see this topic addressed in a very mainstream way, but also in a very public way. But I feel in a very balanced way because Oprah really tried to get different perspectives, both in the audience and people who are estranged, but also with the expert panel as well. And then off the back of that, Mel Robbins did an article which is somewhat controversial. And then more recently is the Beckhams. You're probably not familiar with the David and Victoria Beckham in the US, but or the UK anyway, they're a huge brand and they're very top tier celebrities. Their son very publicly announced his estrangement about a month ago. And the estrangement world has just gone on fire. I've never done as many interviews, media interviews, whatnot around this topic. And we don't like to capitalize on people's misfortune, but at the same time, it's a really unique opportunity to be able to introduce people to this topic and the nuances and complexities of families and how they become estranged. Yeah, my background. So I'm Irish. I'm from Dublin originally, living in the West now. My background is originally in IT. I worked in software development for over 20 years, but I became estranged myself from my parents around 2007. It was a pretty disastrous situation. It didn't really come out of nowhere. It had been on the cards for a while. I thought I'll just deal with this on my own. Typical bloke. I don't need anyone's help. I'll just work through it all on my own. After about a year and a half, I realized I was failing quite miserably in dealing with it on my own. And I reached out to a therapist. And that was the first time I'd even thought about therapy. It's not something that came up in my life before. Although in retrospect, I probably could have done with therapy a few years before I actually went. But I loved the experience. It was so nice. It was so unique. The therapist was really nice. She's still part of my life now, even though she's not my therapist. We still keep in contact. And I ended up in an unusual full circle moment. My first 8 years as a therapist, I worked in the practice where I went as a client. And then she eventually introduced me at the book launch of my book. We'll talk about my book later on, maybe. But I enjoyed therapy. I just thought this is something I want to explore a bit more. And it was around that time that I was getting redundancy for a job I was in for 8 years. So I had a little bit of money and it was just a great, what am I going to do with this? And I figured now is the time to re-educate. It just made sense. So I went back to college in 2009, and studied for about 3.5 years on how to be a therapist. Started working clinically in 2011. And for whatever reason, estrangement followed me into the therapy room. My very first client, you never forget your first client because you're a nervous wreck and you don't want to make a mess of this. And you're conscious of this responsibility and this really hurt person coming in looking for help. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how this is going to play out. But she came in because of a workplace bullying problem. And it was a huge crisis in her life because she'd built her whole identity and her whole life around her career. And it was in academia. And all of a sudden, her world was being rocked and she didn't know how to deal with it. But I just asked her, like, about support in her life and who's there to help her and, about her family. Can they help her? And she put her head down and she kind of looked up in the corner of her eyes and said, I didn't come here to talk about that, Karl. And it became apparent that there was a big problem with her family. And it may have even, what was happening in work, I think mirrored the crisis that she'd experienced with her family for many years. Eventually, she started to open up a small bit. She'd moved away from home. She was 17. She moved to the UK. She hadn't seen much of her family since then, really. She had some contact with one sibling, but she was absolutely estranged from her parents. And from then, just this constant pattern of people coming in who were struggling with their family in various different ways. I wouldn't have used the term family estrangement back then. Not that I didn't know what it was. I just didn't hang my hat there. I might have used the kind of common term that you see now, dysfunctional family or toxic family. Now, I moved away from the idea of toxic family simply because I just became more uncomfortable with it. I just think it's a very cheap and easy label to describe a human being. And so as well, it can almost let the person who's causing the damage off the hook by just labeling him a toxic person as opposed to, no, you're a human being that's responsible for what you've done and you need to reflect and look at that. But then around 2016, I made the decision to go back to college to do my master's and I had to pick a dissertation topic. I was looking at all the different things and came across this term family estrangement. So I just jumped into the literature and I was just struck by how familiar it was. Like it pretty much echoed all the work I'd done the previous 5-6 years, as well as my life experience as well. Obviously, you learn a lot in terms of concepts, terminology, but it aligned perfectly with what I was doing. So that's where I did my dissertation. It was called The Experiences of Familial Estrangement. It was a qualitative study, interviews of 5 Irish people, which I believe it's the only Irish study, only published Irish study. Because after I'd done my dissertation and I got my master's, it always breaks my heart to think that people put so much into their PhDs or their thesis, and then it's just sitting in a library and it doesn't go anywhere. And there's so many breakdowns and stress, maybe even heart attacks for the amount of work that they put into this, that it goes nowhere. Like every study is important. So I wasn't having that. I said, I need to get this published. And also, there was no Irish voices around estrangement back then. And there still isn't. There's a few now popular content creators. And I know there's students who I'm helping who are doing dissertations and I'm hoping that they go to the next level and get published. But at the moment, from what I can see, I'm the only one that's published. But yeah, I took that study. It was thematic analysis, which means that you're breaking the data down into core teams and then sub teams, and then you can flesh out a team to justify that perspective and that angle. And one of the themes that I found was the changing impact and challenges of family estrangement. So what is it like to be estranged this day versus being estranged 12 months later or 2 years later? Over that period of time, how did you feel about the estrangement? Like in many cases, people felt incredibly angry then. A year later, 2 years later, sometimes 5 years later, they didn't have that same level of anger. But it doesn't necessarily mean that life is so much better. Okay, there could be still a profound level of grief, a great deal of shame that comes with this. There's also a ton of social challenges in terms of conversing with people, how to explain to somebody that you're estranged, trying to get support from people. Often people have friends in their life who are great until we have this unique problem with family that you really need someone to get some grasp of it. And you think you do, and then they turn around and say something that they realize they have no clue what I've just explained to them 10, 15, 20 times. So that was published. That eventually became, after many rejections, it was published in the Family Journal. I think it was 2021. It was around that time I started to deliver CPD, as we call it here. You call it CE in the US. Just short courses, just delving into different aspects of estrangement, just looking at the stigma surrounding it. Why is there a stigma? How does that stigma manifest in our clients' lives? I was developing my own kind of modality around how do you unpack an estrangement and then construct it in such a way where you can present it back to a client and show them, look, this is your estrangement in front of you now. And that as a reflective aid was quite useful. That as an educational tool was quite handy as well. But then someone turned around to me when I was started doing that training. He says, look, the first course I did, it was called Navigating Family Estrangement. He says, Karl, there's a book there. Would you try to get a book published? And I had tried to get a self-help book published. I was met with so much rejection because say they're kicking themselves now, but all of those publishers, Karl, this is too nichey. It's not mainstream. It won't sell. I'm like, they had no foresight.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to say, guys, we're talking about a hugely prevalent problem here. And there's other books in the space. It's not just mine. They didn't want to touch it, but I'm very lucky that Routledge took it. Routledge is quite a well-established academic publisher. And their books are targeted more for academics, for researchers, for therapists particularly. So I took the same book but I just had to orient it toward, if I can't write to people who are estranged, why not write to the people trying to help people who are estranged? And that was published in 2024. It's called Navigating Family Estrangement. And yeah, that was 2 years ago. And since then, life has just been a roller coaster of family estrangement. It's just dominated my life. And I didn't set out to specialize in this. I didn't set out to have any expertise. For me, it was just, I was fascinated by the topic on a personal level, on a professional level. And I had a capacity to help people because I didn't jump to conclusions. I didn't feel I needed to tell them how to feel or what they're going through. Okay, resourcing played a part in it. Although interestingly, the more I mature as a therapist, the less I do, if that makes sense to you. And now just seeing where they're at, and I'm just supporting them through their own process. I can name it now. I can see their grief. Whereas in the past, I tried to push it, resource them through, help them access it. Now I can see now that they're not ready. They'll find that place organically.
Yeah.
And I'm here as much just to be that solid presence that really gets what they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So you have a private practice along with doing the courses as well as your book and everything. Okay. Okay, great. And we'll put a link to the book in the show notes so everybody can check it out. But you also, as we're recording this, I am working on getting a course up on my learning management system. That's 8 things that every therapist should know about family estrangement. And that's going to be it's going to be 1.5 hours of continuing education. And you guys know that my company is a NBCC approved continuing education provider. So you will get 1.5 contact hours when you take Karl's course. So that will be in the link as well and the show notes as well. So you guys can check that out. So I did want to ask why, we already talked about why are we seeing more estrangement? Do you believe it's the Oprah segment brought some publicity to it? The Beckhams have brought some publicity to it. I would say Henry and Meghan brought some
Yeah.
publicity to it. Why else do you think we're seeing more? Is there other reasons?
Yeah, I think so. There's two things happening here that we probably need to discuss. It is estrangement on the rise, and why are more people discussing it publicly? Whether it's on the rise is still up for debate. Okay, and you will see a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's on the rise, it's trending." Like, show me the data. Okay, yeah, I appreciate there's some polls in the US that show a slightly higher curve than other previous studies, but they're not connected studies. They're completely independent. We need a longitudinal study to get a much better sense of if there's an upward spike. So I don't know if we can definitively say there are more people estranged now than there were 5 or 10 years ago, but there sure appears to be a sea change in people discussing it publicly. Celebrities definitely play a part in it, but I do think that there's a dynamic happening on social media, and it is a battle of sons and daughters versus mothers and fathers. And I have to say, probably more mothers than fathers. Everybody is vying for validation, and they're sick of being labeled. They're sick of being boxed off. Okay. I think there's now more content creation. Now, there is an element of people realizing this is a niche that's popular and maybe they're creating content. But that also feeds into, if you imagine you're an estranged person, you're very hurt, grief stricken, deeply uncertain because there's nobody advocating for your perspective because everything that happened behind closed doors, no one's talking about it. Everyone is telling you you're at fault. You will go wherever you can for validation, and people will naturally go to social media. And the people creating that content, what they're saying, it resonates with people. It speaks personally. But the problem then is that it may drive the wedge between the public conversation between sons and daughters and parents. And they're not very good at distinguishing their own subjective experience and their parents from every other parent online. But the parents are doing the exact same thing. And I'm seeing more and more parents creating social media platforms, and they're pushing back. They're saying, look, stop labeling me as an abusive person. I wasn't that person. Wasn't trying to hurt my kids. And they just don't want anything to do with me. And I don't know the truth if they're telling the truth. Of course, we're taking people at face value. One of the big problems in the entire conversation is attributational bias. Okay, how we attribute these issues, and everyone is blaming everybody else. Okay, and particularly the parents are prone to this more so than sons and daughters. The parents will look for external factors. Like, for example, in one study, the number one reason parents say they're estranged is because of divorce. Okay, they're not saying because of them, their behaviors, their expectations, whatever pressures, it's something else. The latest move now is to blame social media or to blame therapists. And we're seeing this a lot as well, where it was part of that Oprah piece that I've seen others talk about as well, where therapists are fueling this trend towards no contact and encourage people. I don't know if that's true. Okay, I know from in Ireland and the people I know, if anything, people are pushing reconciliation. Therapists are pushing, they're not telling people to walk away. They're probably encouraging people, would you not try one more time? Would you not? I don't know what's happening in America, if it's a different problem over there. But the same as social media, it's blaming social media because it's putting ideas in people's mind, and it is normalizing people not talking to their family. It's creating an environment where there's less of a stigma to do that, but also maybe not prompting people to go back in and reevaluate, confront issues, set boundaries, do all the things that we would encourage you to do. Maybe there's concern to this pushing a culture of avoidance, which these are all real problems. But my fear is that we can't get too caught up in those. We still have to look at the core issues, and they're generally always within the family. Okay. And that's my worry about that entire conversation publicly. Yeah, this happened over here, and I know that, but let's bring it home. And that's how I'm working with my own clients. Even if I work with, like 50% of my clients are parents now, and they may say, I think social media had a contributing factor. And I'll say, okay, that's fine, but let's just work with what we know. And I'm working with a mother and a son at the moment. And like she was convinced that he was watching podcasts like this, and this was making the situation worse. Now she held that space and she held her own emotions, and we had really tough conversations, but they're doing great because she was able to challenge all of that. And she realized that these were just defensive shields because she had made mistakes, not horrible mistakes,
Right.
but she had experienced so much rejection in her life that she was now putting all that rejection onto him. He's gone on to podcasts trying to understand, trying to make sense of it, maybe find a concept, a terminology, something that he could play back to his mom, but she couldn't hear any of that because she was still in that rejection place. But we've worked through, they've had the best Christmas they've had in years just gone. And it was so unstaged. It was organic.
Yeah.
You around, well, they pop in, I'd leave some Christmas dinner in. There was no winter, there was no strain, there was no like having to make an effort. It was, that's ideally how a relationship is. It's give and take, ebb and flow. But unfortunately, there's often a strain period before that happens. But often it'll never happen because it requires a level of vulnerability that many people won't go to.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on this in what you were just saying, but my next question was going to be, what are therapists' misunderstanding about family estrangement? And I think you touched on that a little bit.
No, but you're right. It is a good question. The first thing is to be able to recognize estrangement first. Because I think one of the problems that it's so heavily aligned lately with the no contact, but that's just one flavor.
Yeah.
But the estrangement is on a continuum, and the no contact is one end. People could be low contact. We call it emotional estrangement. They could be interacting with each other on a regular and semi-regular basis. So that, again, like these are two different places. If a client presents and I haven't spoken to my parents in years, or I'm meeting them next week, different set of challenges. And we need to understand where they're at. We need to understand how long this has gone on for. We need to understand why that's happened. But the problem with the why is that could take a long time to unpack. It may not be rooted in one thing. It could be rooted in years and years of issues that often make no sense because they're so focused on the current generation and them and their parents. We often have to think, even though we may never meet the grandparents or even great grandparents, but we're trying to get a sense of the system that they're a part of
Mm.
and how everyone is so stuck within that. And they're at a point now where they're prepared to go to a place, possibly on their own, because most of my clients don't come for reconciliation. They're literally coming for support and try to make sense of it and find a way to move on with their life. There is more reconciliation coming in, and I welcome that. Great. But it doesn't always work out because not everyone that shows up is ready to work.
So you're saying that therapists may not even know what they're dealing with until they get into it with them. It might just be, they have to really flesh it out.
They have to flesh it out, but then they have to own their own family background.
The therapists, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
The therapist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to own my background. And as somebody who is estranged from a parent, I have to own that completely because otherwise then I'm being disingenuous because maybe it might come up. I've done so much work on myself that I like to think that I'm in this nice centered place where I can work with whatever, but that's what supervision is for. And I brought it to supervision for years. We have to own our family background, what family means to us, our experiences, our attachments, because I do see it where people just have really strong family values. Parents are so important that you should reconcile. Instead of actually trying to find out what does the client want, had they tried to reconcile in the past, what does reconciliation even look like? Is the support there if the reconciliation fails? I'm working with a mother at the moment whose son just wants nothing to do with her. She's a lovely person. She has tried. She keeps, what do I do now, Carl? What do I do now? And like, we're at a point and I said, look, maybe you need to stop trying because you're just getting hurt. She at least has me. She's sending money. She see her son in the street. She give him a wave. He'll just ignore her. Devastating. Like all of these efforts. So it's really understanding what's happening between them and what they need from us. A sense of what an outcome actually means. Because often it's a vague, I'm estranged and I need to talk about it. That's fine if we're clear that you just want that. Others have an event coming up. Okay, they might have a wedding coming up or a christening, or maybe there could be an impending funeral. Okay, maybe the person they're estranged from is quite elderly or quite sick and they're worried that this could be an end of life situation in the next few months. How do they deal with that? The decision making process. Do I go?
Mm.
How long do I stay? Do I get involved? It's very complicated. The reality of being an estranged person.
Mm-hmm.
And it has become more complicated because of social media, because we were so connected. There's so many means of communication. There's so much pressure. There's so much competition in terms of people comparing each other's suffering and pain that you can't just feel the way you feel. So I think it's part of this work. You almost have to have you have to be a bit of a sociologist as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just therapy. We need to know where the client exists in this world, what their core beliefs are about family. I have clients from different religious beliefs. I had a client who was a Buddhist a while ago. Family means something different to a Buddhist than for them. I was raised a Christian. In Buddhist culture, over here in Ireland and in our culture, would say, oh, family is really important. A Buddhist might say, they might look at you funny. What do you mean family is important? Family is everything.
Mm.
There's nothing else. There's no separation.
Right.
There's no distinction the way we would have it in Western society of you're here and you're part of a family. It's a different hierarchy. The kids, young people are solely responsible for their parents as well. And so you can imagine being estranged from a parent, which in itself is devastating. But then you have the weight of the culture and the religious beliefs and the expectations within your subgroup of the same religious belief telling you that you're responsible for them. You can imagine the weight of that.
Yeah.
And we always have to be respectful of people's beliefs and their religious beliefs on the culture that they're a part of. It's not about telling people to walk away from any of that. But if we have that capacity to really get what they're going through, we might be the only person that really gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that we need to know that there's a spectrum of estrangement, that we need to be sociologists or look at the system and that the person is operating in or comes from, and the culture and the values. What else are things that we need to be checking out as therapists?
Yeah. So much of it is understanding the generational gap is a big one. Okay. And it's wide. We're therapists. We're of therapy culture. We go to therapy, we read books, and we're part of a culture, a generation of people and younger than us who are, this is their thing, they're into this. But generations from people born 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, like they're not going to therapy.
Yeah.
They're not reading these books. The language, you can go up and say, you're gaslighting me and I'm here to set boundaries. And they're just like, what are you talking about? You're not speaking their language. But it's an ethical dilemma because I don't believe we've any right to force these people to go to therapy just because that's where we're at now. What do we have to tell someone in their 60s and 70s, you have to go to therapy? No, you need to explore your trauma. No, I'm perfectly fine not looking at my trauma. Okay, but it's causing a problem between us. Tough. So it's an element of who catches up? Do people step back? And it's not an intellectual stepping back. It's stepping back to the cultures that our parents and previous generations that were part of and what was normal to them. Normatives are changing all the time. The adult children say, no, parents need to catch up. And they'll also say there's a power dynamic there as well, which means that the responsibility is on them always. I'm not disputing that, but it's not that black and white either. When I think also we maybe have to adjust our expectations and understand that, okay, this is where we come from. But the problem, and I see this even when I work with families, is it's context versus experience. Like let's say you're born in the 50s and you're of a certain age now and you were shamed growing up and no one talked about their shame. And then you shamed your son or daughter as a young person and then it caused a huge rift. You're trying to explain this to the adult son or daughter now. Okay. This person saying, hey, look, this is why I did this and this is where I came from. It doesn't negate this person feeling shamed. Right. They're still internalizing that experience of being shamed. So, you're trying to create a dynamic where they're telling what happened, but they're expressing real regret and real remorse and a genuine effort to try to repair. But not everyone's going to do that. They'll stay in that defensive place. It's not from a place of concern and I just want us to be better. It's like, I'm not to blame because this is where I came from. But then you take this person out and this person is the shamed son and daughter, okay? And everyone else is telling them, look, your parents, that's where they came from. And this is what happened to them. Oh, they did love it. This didn't know how to express it. None of that's going to land.
Right.
Not a single one of those words are going to land because they're still carrying this deeply rooted experience or sense of there's something wrong with me because I was shamed at such a formative years, a stage in my life. They were still developing in every sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is again part of the problem with the public discourse because there's people out there who feel real rejection, real heartbreak. They've experienced real abuse. And then everyone else is trying to explain it away. And it's the wrong people. Like sometimes I look at the conversations online and you guys have you don't belong in each other's lives. If it wasn't for this term family estrangement, you two people would never meet. You'd never be interacting. And maybe even not being in each other's lives. It's just simply this title. And you both have experiences which are so powerful and very painful and which are mutually exclusive. Not compatible experiences. And yet they're fighting over who's right and who's wrong.
I know.
It's not nice to see. And I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah. And of other people like you and me watching this, and it's just such a turnoff. I don't even want to get on social media. And I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't read the comments, I guess is.
I do because I need to. It's pretty much part of my job now. And I take screenshots of the bad ones. Now, obviously, I obfuscate, I remove names. Whenever I do presentations on stigma, I need to get a real one. Look at this. This is an example of it at play on social media. Look at this judgmental remark. Look at this comment in response to an article behind a paywall, which they didn't pay to read, but they're making a comment based on the headline. There's no way they read the full article. This is what you're up against. And it's often religion. It's sinful. You're going against God. You should be ashamed of yourself for not speaking to your parents. Religion is an element of it. There's other cultural aspects to it as well. But I'm always trying to get a temperature check because it isn't always nasty. Sometimes you meet kindness. Sometimes you see nuance. Sometimes, people say, look, there's obviously more to it than being shared here.
Yeah.
The flip side is when someone's attacking like the professionals online. And I don't get too much of that, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I haven't because I don't post as much, but there'd be times where people absolutely attacking me just by talking about estrangement. Mm-hmm. You're normalizing it. You're encouraging people to do it just by talking about it, even though you're just trying to acknowledge an experience and this is what it might be like. I compare it to over here in Ireland, suicide was a very taboo topic. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think there was a fear that if we start talking about it publicly, we're normalizing it as a choice. But guess what? Suicide rates didn't come down by not talking about it. Suicide rates kept going up. We have to talk about it. Not talking about it doesn't keep the numbers down. It just actually, people just suffer in silence. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how family estrangements become it's just such a topic. I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere now, and people are weighing in that I'm like, who are you? Where did you come from? What is your expertise? Are you a therapist?
No, but it's a really good point, though. I did a TV thing recently, okay, and I had to tell these guys, I don't know the Beckhams. I don't know what they're going through. No one has a clue. But people with a hook, like the narcissists are saying, oh, look, this person. And then the alienation people, look, this is a clear example of alienation. And look at this. And nobody has a clue what's happening.
That's just the thing. It's like nobody really knows what's going on behind closed doors. And they're not going to tell us. The Beckhams aren't going to come out and lay it all out.
It's no one's business.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's nobody's business. Hopefully they're getting what they need and they're resolving it. Hopefully whatever they need to do, that's for them to decide. But it is fascinating. And I don't know.
Okay. You work with couples. You work with families.
Yes.
Okay. Well, how would you help the Beckhams?
I don't know. That's such a good question. I would want to meet with them and find out what do they want to happen? What do they hope to happen? And then we could do family therapy to get them all in the room together and figure something out.
Let's say you get them into the room
Next. Oh, I feel like this feels like supervision, which is great. I haven't done that in a long time. I would probably start with, let's see, where would I start? I guess I would want to hear, it sounds like the son is the most hurt by this. So I would want for him to share what he was ready to share, just his experience. And then ask the parents, how do you hear that? What is it? What happens to you when you hear this? You hear your son. And then go from there, I guess, depending on what we get, ask the Beckhams, do they understand his perspective? Are they able to see that he is really hurt? And what do you hope to do with that? Or what would you like to see happen with the relationship? I don't know, something along those lines. Am I close, Dr. Melvin?
They're not right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I know how I would walk it.
How would you work with them?
I don't know. I'm not a conventionally family therapist trained. I'm trained, but as a normal therapist, but conventional therapy. But my entry is estrangement.
Yeah.
I see chaos, and I'm a somatic practitioner as well. Okay. Yeah, you need to debrief everybody. You need to find out on an individual level, not on a couple. It would be Dave first.
Yeah.
Probably Victoria. I feel like she'd probably the boss. And then Dave.
So you go her, you do her first. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But then possibly Brooklyn's partner as well. And then Brooklyn. But if we were to get them into the room, I'd encourage them all, let's just sit here. We're not going to say anything. Because there's now been a period of time where they haven't been in each other's company. Their nervous systems are so dysregulated.
That's true.
There's a comfortableness in this moment that we have to acknowledge it. We're not going to rush anything.
Yeah.
And then, to me, it's an organic. Like these people know each other. They all know each other. Okay, we're moderating and mediating and therapizing, but like lads, I believe you all know what the problem is, and we need to find out. We need the truth about what the problem is.
Yeah.
And also, who wants to talk first?
Yeah.
And let that. And sometimes it's chaos.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes you have to let a little chaos there because there's a discharge of energy. But then okay, stop. Let's just sit with it again. Okay. And sit with everything. What comes up. And we're just letting it play out. And we're there and we're getting involved. Our presence is important, but I'm not trying to overly lead it too much unless it just gets mad. Or if, I think what you're describing would be very important if no one's saying anything.
Yes. Yeah.
If there's this defensiveness and okay, I need to draw this out through the structure. But then at the same time, I'm very comfortable with silence.
Yeah.
And I realize the importance of silence. Yeah. And also, if someone's reaching out to me, they're reaching out for Karl. So I'm here now. So what do you want me to do? Why am I here? And to be honest with you, Lisa, I'm not even saying I'm right or wrong. I'm of a stage in my life, I can't handle bullshit. I can't handle fakeness, superficial exchanges. We don't have time. The Beckhams don't have time. I don't have time. You don't have time. We just have no time for superficiality. But why are we here? What's going on? Okay, let's talk about it. And I think that can be very effective. Now, at the same time, you're right. There's still a bit of work there in that. I've been on sessions with mothers and sons, rather, or even fathers and daughters. And sometimes it's real, like, even the parents getting a lot of shit. And like, no, I don't, that's not fair. Yeah, sometimes they're too hard on each other. And there has to be, I can't just sit there and let someone take it and be the receiving end of all of this. That's not fair. We have to protect people as well. There's a responsibility to make sure everyone's reasonably okay, even though we know it's tense. The resource that comes in, if it gets a bit heavy, let's sit with the breath. Okay, no, the chair. No, it's the air. We do whatever we can, but it is about trying to be a connection here that has been severed. Okay, how do we reestablish it? I think naming certain things is important. For example, do we all agree that the way it was can't be this? We can't go back to that. There's something new has to happen now. The old dynamic, the old relationship, that didn't work. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in the room with these people, or we wouldn't be on a call if things were working fine. Okay. And so there's certain terms, there's certain conditions in terms of if you're not working, don't waste my time. I won't waste yours. And let's just see how far. It's a long game, not short. And I'd be really conscious about them being celebrities and being super conscious of perception. Would they try too quickly to, oh, we're fine now, and let's get a picture and look, we're up around and look back. Brooklyn came up, like, lads, no,
Yeah.
this has to be offline. Your entire relationship needs to be offline. Even it cannot be. You need the focus has to be on the relationship and not on everything else. Strangers, like it is, and that's what we're talking about. Being so preoccupied with the opinions of strangers. It baffles me sometimes. Stuff that people share online with strangers. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Look
yeah,
at my,
no.
look at my kids. They're going to put my kids in to strangers. What I had for dinner today to strangers. I just can't. This is my age now. I just like. I've like even my dinner. Who cares what I had for my dinner? Really. So there's that element of I think you need to also respect the celebrity element to it. Celebrity is, of course, Lisa. Celebrity is the worst thing that could happen to a person, I think. No, but it's up there because it just does so much damage to an individual and whoever's in their circle. So my clients are estranged from really high profile people. And these are people who are celebrated publicly.
Yeah.
Oh, they're amazing, held in this high pillar, and their behaviors behind the scene are awful. The lack of concern for people in their life. And it enables because they tell them they're great or they have this earning capacity, and whoever's in their business circle is earning because of this person and their brand and their image. Come back from that in terms of lower themselves to a normal person who has made a mess of a relationship with their sons and daughters or whoever else is in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a fascinating topic, and people are so interesting, and relationships are fascinating. And just doing that little experiential exercise of how would you help the Beckhams? Gosh, it just gets me thinking about, oh yeah, how would I do that? How would I approach it? And that was really fun. Thanks for throwing that out there.
But I think it's a question that, especially if it's therapists watching this, question to ask ourselves. And I don't believe there's a right or wrong. I might set up a bomb in the Beckham's house with my approach. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. But I only know me and my personality and how I try to be sincere. And you hope that works, but maybe a different approach is the right approach for them. This is where pluralism comes in. It has to be client-led. Like the client does have to, they have a massive say in their therapy. They decide what we work on today. They decide, now they may have a goal which isn't realistic in terms of a reconciliation. But what they're getting is probably what they didn't realize they needed was a relationship, affectional relationship with someone that just is with them all the way through. We're not changing anything outside. We're not agents of change in their real lives. But for 1 hour, they have a place to fall apart, to stop putting on the fake smile, acting like everything is fine when we know it isn't fine. Things are not okay. And even that is really important. And they realize that's the value that they're getting from this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had that experience recently with, it wasn't estrangement, but it was, I asked at the end because I thought, did you get anything out of this session? What did you hope to, did you get what you needed out of the session? And the person was like, oh yeah, I got it. I needed to tell you the story and I needed someone to hear it. You didn't have to validate it. I just needed to share it. And I hadn't really thought about that before. I'm so concerned about being effective and the outcome. And do you feel like you have something to help you change behaviorally versus I just needed somebody to sit with me and witness my story and my history. And I just was like, oh, okay, I do that too.
All they needed was another human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
We do sometimes default to therapy approaches, and we feel the pressure
Yeah.
to make some intervention that'll revolutionize their life, and we realize no, just our presence is enough.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
If they chose you,
Mhm.
that's a big because of social media and people are watching your program or your podcast, or they may see me. They're choosing me, and because they know they listen to my pitch, my manner. They listen to you, your manner, and they just know, yeah, Lisa's the person that I need to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. Your clients are very lucky to have such a great, helpful therapist in their lives. So let's talk a little bit about this 1.5 hour continuing education course. So it's called 8 Things Every Therapist Should Know About Family Estrangement. And it's great. You've got 2 videos in there, and then you've got an ebook that goes along with it. So when people purchase the course, they'll get the videos and they'll get the ebook. And you cover obviously 8 things they should know. Can you, off the top of your head, can you list them? Do you know what they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Lisa, put me on the spot.
I'll pull them up too.
Yeah, able to. No, it's okay. But just for context, why I the course. Okay, again, the book came out in 2024, right? I knew I'm now going to be in a unique position where I'm going to be standing or sitting in front of larger groups of professionals, not just therapists, social workers, social care workers, counselors of different varieties, coaches. I knew I needed to. I don't like, whenever I give a presentation, I work out the presumption I may never see them again. This is possibly a one and done, not for any negative reason other than simply they've interest in this topic for this one event, then they're going to move on to other things. So I have an hour and a half to 2 hours to impart them with something that gives them a good understanding. Okay, not just a superficial, but something that will be is real, something that they will bring into their professional lives and maybe even their personal lives. And you'll be surprised how much of their personal lives that come up when I do this, particularly live. And the goals in a live event is questions and the sharing. But the idea was, how do I distill this into 8 key points that they can reflect on, think about, and then frame against themselves or their clients? Number one, what is family estrangement? It's one phenomenon, many names. It has different faces. It looks different things. It looks in different ways, but what exactly is it? And then how do we do a deep dive into what those different manifestations look like? The second one is estrangement equals rejection. Okay. What that means is that, and if you took nothing away from anything I do, even this program, at the heart of estrangement is rejection. Every estranged person feels deeply rejected. Why they're rejected varies. It could be their beliefs, their life choices, their personality, their career choices. They could be rejecting their entitlement in terms of setting boundaries, their right to have an independent life, to be treated correctly. There's a whole reason why people cannot accept each other. And the opposite of acceptance is rejection. And that rejection is pervasive. It goes across every aspect of someone's life. It runs so deep that they are effectively primed for rejection.
Yeah.
So they go through life rejecting themselves from different groups. They may perceive rejection when there's none there.
Right.
Okay. That's a key part of it. Another of the 8 points is that there's a very real stigma surrounding this. Okay. So what I actually say, because you get asked all the time, is there a stigma? My honest answer is there isn't, there isn't. It has a lot to do with who's in your circle. Okay. You might get lucky and you've got friends in your life and say, look, I don't talk to my brother or sister or my mother or father or whoever else. I go, geez, I haven't seen such and such in years either. And then all of a sudden there's no stigma because they've had that experience and they get it. Or they know the person enough to know that if they're estranged, it's for very real reasons and it's not for some shallow thing. They don't push them either way. They just say, God, I'm really sorry. They just have that capacity to empathize with it. But the extreme is the other side, where you start talking about, I don't talk to this person, and you just see people getting really uncomfortable and they look away. And They try to change the topic and they can't handle it. And because they can't handle it, they'll just default to, "Oh, you should talk to your brothers. You really need to make up with your sister." And that's fueling it. In other cases, like, that's just great. How could you not talk to your mother? They're almost offended. Okay. That's a key aspect of it as well. The impact, this is another one of the 8 points. The impact is very layered. Okay. And in the book, I constructed a little model around categories of impact, mostly psychological, relational, and other social. Okay. The psychological are the ones you would expect. Depression. People feel very depressed because of the situation, the breakdown of the relationship. Shame, really common. Rumination is a big psychological impact. In your mind, over and over, trying to unpack, make sense of the whole situation. People get very lost in their thoughts. They become quite detached, removed from their environment because they're stuck in their heads. One of the problems with that is people make mistakes because they're not paying attention. I've had clients and research participants saying that they were making mistakes in work because they were so distracted and consumed by this family situation. So all of a sudden you have a psychological problem, well, impact, rumination, having a social impact on people's jobs. Okay. It's having a relational impact because they've withdrawn from their partner, or their partner has asked them what's the problem and they've tried to talk to them, the partner doesn't get it and just becomes frustrated because they're having the same conversation over and over. And they don't feel like there's any progression. Now there's stress with a partner, maybe even compounded shame, because now it's having effect in this relationship and they're empathetic. Oh, my partner's upset by me now. Not only have I upset everyone in the family, I'm upsetting my partner as well. And I'm making mistakes in work. My boss is pissed off. Okay. This is iceberg stuff here. I'm really scraping the surface, but there's so much depth underneath this. But again, as clinicians, we need to know those layers of impact and how they interact and influence each other.
Yeah.
Because you don't just feel shame and it does not have a negative effect in your relationships or other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. But then there are other impacts that I talk about, but aren't necessarily in the model. Financial impact. Okay. Like some people, they don't have financial support because they're estranged from their family. Okay. One issue I'm working with over here in Ireland is with students who are applying for student aid, and part of the application process, there is a checkbox where they can say they're estranged from their parents, but they have to prove that. The way they prove it is they go to the police station, fill out a report, or they go to a contact or a social worker and fill out a report. Imagine you're 17, your relationship with your parents is broken down. Are you going to go into a police station and fill out a report? Are you even going to contact a social worker? No, probably not, because you're going to be terrified that this will go back to your parents. But there's so much fear around us. So all of a sudden, this person doesn't have the financial aid that they're entitled to. I'm working with the students union here just to see, at least raise awareness around the struggles of students, but also see if we can encourage policymakers to reevaluate the process of how someone gets a grant. Is there more flexibility, more nuance around what estrangement is and how it manifests in a person's life? So just the assessment process, whether it happens or not, I don't know. But other financial impacts are people are written out of wills. Happens all the time, all of the time. That's devastating for people. And it's not about the money. Sometimes it's about the money, but often it's just about the fact that I wasn't important enough to be left anything, even a keepsake, even an object, a toy, a picture. These could be quite devastating.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. What else? Support is very hard to find. Okay. The right support, because we're seeing more and more Facebook groups, but they're not all moderated in the same way.
Yeah.
I've seen them. I ran one. I saw one first before I set one up. I was pretty appalled by what I saw, because it was just a dumping ground of anger and resentment.
Yeah.
And people were dropping pictures of their adult children, sharing messages with names. If that was in Europe, we'd have a GDPR nightmare. In America, the laws are quite different, but I'm like, this is not healthy. In fairness, I've been looking at the comments and some were saying that none of this is good.
Yeah.
It just becomes an echo chamber.
Yeah.
They're not all the same. And I have to acknowledge they're all voluntarily run. So we do have to acknowledge these are not paid services. And people are probably estranged and they've come together to try and create this environment. And maybe they lean towards a certain perspective because that's what resonates with them. And I wouldn't take away from them their efforts, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're always healthy places.
Yeah.
Not everyone is in a place where I think sometimes, like, lads maybe come off social media, but then where do you go? Like in Europe, I run a support group. I run it maybe every 6 weeks. And there's not much else in Europe in terms of support groups. But in America, it's a bit better. There's a little bit more organization over there. You guys are a bit, and there's more people realizing its importance and setting up bespoke groups. And that's great as a service. But we're very underserved,
Yeah.
really, as an issue and as a community. It's not served as well. And there's arguments about should there be some training for people running these groups so they actually know how to. I ran a group for a while. I ran it for about 2 years and it was mostly successful, except those maybe 2 times it was a disaster where there's an exchange. Someone posts something pretty okay, someone responds, and then the conversation goes downhill, but it's buried in a thread that I didn't see because I only saw the first message. It could be happening for 20 minutes. Then people are so hurt. I come in, as the moderator, I enforce the rules, which is respect for individual experience. I delete the thread because it's nasty and it's not breaks the rules. Then I get it. Then everyone's attacking me because I'm taking a side, even though I'm not taking a side.
No.
So my issue with the group I had was containment. These
Yeah.
people are so hurt. I don't know how I can support these people through their hurt in an environment that's not hands-on. I'm transitioning into face support groups online. There's no trouble.
Yeah. It's
You don't
yeah.
get that knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different when it's on a Facebook group or social media. It's I don't know. It's just different, and there's many reasons for that. But when it's a support group, and I'm guessing people are paying for your support group, so it's probably
Yeah,
versus a group on Facebook that's not paid.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's also with face to face. Yeah, no one needs another authoritarian person in their life, but you still have to be a firm presence.
Yeah.
Have to dictate the rules at the start. I
Yeah.
don't record these sessions. That big one. There's an agreement from everyone. We're all going to respect each other. What's shared in this call, it stays here.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you hear, even if you're a son or a daughter that's very hurt by your parents, and you listen to another mother heartbroken over there, you don't get the same defensive reaction.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing an actual human being, a
Right.
person that's a real person. There's their home. There's where they've showed up today. Need support. There's a lot of healing in that.
Yeah.
And there's times when I'd be working with sons and daughters, lovely people. I'm working with parents, lovely people. Actually, they brought them together into this kind of curated family. Obviously, I'd never do that.
Yeah.
But just as it'd be lovely if they met, they would actually have a nice dynamic. They could support each other.
Yeah.
Not in the web sphere where people are just nasty and angry and it's all impartial. Half the time it's not even their names, it's just some handle that they're using. Actual human beings talking and relating and empathizing and supporting each other. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the beautiful work of groups and individual relational therapy. Wow, we've covered so much. Thank you for your time and for your energy for this topic. It's really fun, and I'm grateful that you're doing this work, and it's inspiring, and I really hope that those listening will take advantage of the course that will be on the website and sign up for it. Is there anything else you want people to know before we go?
No, just thank you, Lisa, for asking me. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you reached out, and I love the platform you've created. I think it's great. I think something like that, again, you're giving a voice to so many experts on this planet that don't have massive social media followings. I'm lucky I get a bit of mainstream work and I have a book and stuff like that, but there's some incredible people that are just quietly working, and you're giving a platform for them to actually structure their knowledge into content that's now accessible to other people in a very affordable way as well. So I love what you're doing. Please keep doing it. I do hope people benefit from the course. Absolutely. If someone does it and they've got questions or feedback, shoot me an email. karlmelvin.com is the website. I'm booked up in terms of clients. I'm booked way up, unfortunately, but I still love to hear from people all the time.
Awesome.
And one last thing, slight plug, although I'm not there yet, I will be training therapists on how to work with estrangement. That will be later in the year.
Sweet.
I'm beginning course development. Then I'm going to start the accreditation process. It'll be in Ireland, but I will look at accreditation in other places, including the US as well.
That's really exciting. So maybe we'll have to take a trip to Ireland. That would be amazing.
Always welcome, Lisa. Always welcome.
Awesome. Thank you again for being here. This has just been so wonderful.
Kiro, thank you.
Please note that the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover all the pod courses and other continuing education offerings. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.